Welcome back to Epic English Stories, where we turn your English dreams into reality through the power of storytelling and proven methods. Picture this. You're standing in front of a mirror, heart pounding, mouth dry, desperately wanting to speak English, but the words just won't come out. Sound familiar? That was me just a few years ago. I was that person who understood English movies, could read English books, but when it came to actually speaking, silence. Complete, embarrassing silence. But today, I'm here speaking to you fluently, confidently, naturally. And no, I didn't attend expensive schools or hire private tutors. I didn't move to an English-speaking country or spend thousands on courses. What I discovered was something so simple, so accessible, that anyone can do it right from their bedroom. The secret? It's not what you think. It's not about memorizing grammar rules or learning 1,000 vocabulary words. It's about understanding how your brain actually learns language, the same way you learned your first language as a child. Are you ready to discover the method that transformed my English forever? Drop a comment below with your biggest English-speaking challenge, and let's begin this incredible journey together. Let me take you back to where it all began. I was 17, sitting in my small bedroom, frustrated beyond belief. I had been studying English for years, grammar books, vocabulary lists, endless exercises. Yet when my cousin visited from America, I couldn't even ask him if he wanted tea. I felt like a fraud, like all those years of study meant nothing. That night, something inside me broke. I was tired of being the smart kid who couldn't speak. I was tired of nodding and smiling when I should have been talking. I was tired of watching opportunities slip away because I was too scared to open my mouth. Then, almost by accident, I discovered something that changed everything. I found a simple English story on my phone, just a 3-minute tale about a lost puppy finding its way home. I didn't understand every word, but something magical happened when I pressed play. The narrator's voice was gentle, the pace was natural, and somehow, even without understanding everything, I felt the emotion of the story. I listened to that story 12 times that first day, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Each time, new words became clear. Each time, the rhythm of English settled deeper into my mind. The little dog ran through the forest. He missed his family. Finally, he saw the warm light of home. These weren't just words anymore. They were feelings, images, a complete world that I was beginning to understand. Here's what I didn't realize at the time. My brain was doing exactly what it did when I was a baby learning my first language. I wasn't analyzing grammar or memorizing vocabulary lists. I was absorbing the natural flow of English, the way words connect, the music of a language. I was learning through pure exposure and emotional connection. The breakthrough came 3 weeks later. I was walking to school, earphones in, listening to my growing collection of simple stories, when suddenly I caught myself thinking in English. Not translating from my native language, actually thinking in English. The morning is cold. I need to walk faster. That dog looks happy. The thoughts just flowed naturally. But the real test came when I least expected it. I was buying groceries when a tourist approached me, looking confused. "Excuse me, do you know where the post office is?" she asked. My old self would have panicked, made excuses, and walked away. But something incredible happened instead. Without thinking, without translating, I heard myself say, "Yes, it's 2 blocks down this street on the left side." The words came out naturally, confidently, correctly. The tourist smiled and thanked me, but I was the one who felt like I'd won the lottery. Those hundreds of hours of listening had built something powerful in my brain, a foundation of natural English that was ready when I needed it. The science behind this is fascinating. When we listen to stories, our brains create neural pathways that mirror those of native speakers. We internalize pronunciation, intonation, and sentence structure without conscious effort. We learn the way words naturally connect, the rhythm of questions and answers, the emotional undertones that make communication real. But here's the crucial part. I didn't just listen passively. I listened with curiosity, with emotion, with genuine interest in the stories. I laughed at funny parts, felt sad during touching moments, and celebrated happy endings. This emotional engagement is what made the difference between mindless exposure and meaningful learning. The stories I chose weren't random either. I started with simple tales, adventures of animals, short mysteries, everyday situations. Each story was slightly more complex than the last, gradually building my understanding without overwhelming me. I treated each story like a friend. I was getting to know better with each encounter. Within 6 months, my English had transformed. I wasn't just understanding words. I was feeling the language, breathing it, living it. And it all started with that first simple story about a lost puppy. After months of listening, I felt ready to take the next terrifying step, actually speaking. But ready is a relative term. I was still nervous, still afraid of making mistakes, still convinced that everyone would judge my accent or laugh at my errors. What I didn't realize was that this fear was the biggest obstacle between me and fluency. The turning point came during a particularly lonely evening. I was in my room, having just finished listening to a story about a young girl who overcame her fear of performing on stage. Something about her courage resonated with me. If she could face hundreds of people, surely I could face my own reflection. I stood up, walked to my mirror, and made a decision that would change my life. I was going to speak English to myself every single day, starting right then. No excuses, no waiting for the perfect moment. No more I'm not ready yet. Hello, I said to my reflection. My voice cracked slightly. My name is... I paused, took a breath, and continued. I am learning English, and I am brave enough to try. The words felt strange in my mouth, but there was something liberating about hearing them out loud. That first conversation with myself lasted exactly 2 minutes. I talked about my day, described what I could see in my room, and shared how I was feeling. It was clumsy, full of pauses, peppered with mistakes, but it was real. It was me, expressing myself in English, and nobody was there to judge or correct me. The next day, I did it again, this time for 3 minutes. I told my reflection about the book I was reading, the weather outside, my plans for the weekend. Each day, I added a little more time, a little more complexity, a little more confidence. But speaking to a mirror can only take you so far. The real breakthrough came when I started speaking to my cat, Luna. I know it sounds ridiculous, but Luna was the perfect English conversation partner. She listened without judgment, never corrected my grammar, and always seemed interested in what I had to say. Luna, do you want some food? I would ask. Are you tired? Do you like this sunny weather? I described her actions. You are sitting by the window. You're watching the birds. You look very comfortable. These simple conversations train my mouth to form English sounds naturally and my brain to think directly in English without translation. The magic of speaking to pets, or even to yourself, is that it removes the pressure. There's no social anxiety, no fear of embarrassment, no worry about perfect grammar. You're simply practicing the physical act of speaking while building neural pathways that will serve you when real conversations happen. As weeks passed, I became more adventurous. I started narrating my daily activities. Now I'm making breakfast. I'm cracking 2 eggs into the pan. The eggs are cooking nicely. While walking, I describe what I saw. That tree has beautiful flowers. The sky is very blue today. Those children are playing soccer. This constant internal dialogue in English was transforming my brain. I was no longer thinking in my native language and then translating. I was thinking directly in English, and it felt natural, effortless, exciting. But the ultimate test was still ahead, speaking to another human being. That opportunity came sooner than expected. I was waiting for the bus when I noticed a confused-looking foreigner studying a map. My heart started racing. This was my moment of truth. Every instinct told me to look away, to pretend I hadn't seen him, to avoid the potential embarrassment. But then I remembered all those hours of practice, all those conversations with Luna, all those moments in front of the mirror. I had been preparing for this exact situation. I took a deep breath and walked over. Excuse me, do you need help? The words came out clearly, confidently, naturally. The man looked up with relief. Yes, please. I'm looking for the train station. We talked for 5 minutes. He thanked me warmly and went on his way, but I stood there feeling like I had just climbed Mount Everest. That conversation changed everything. It proved that all my practice had been worth it, that speaking English wasn't as scary as I'd imagined, and that I was capable of much more than I believed. While speaking was exhilarating, I soon realized that to truly master English, I needed to engage with it in every possible way. Reading and writing weren't just academic exercises. They were the tools that would give me precision, expand my vocabulary, and help me understand the deeper structures of the language. My reading journey began in an unexpected place, the children's section of a library. I remember feeling embarrassed as I picked up picture books meant for 8-year-olds. But I quickly discovered that these simple stories were exactly what I needed. They used essential vocabulary, clear sentence structures, and engaging plots that kept me motivated. My first book was about a mouse who dreamed of becoming a chef. The sentences were short. Mickey loved to cook. He made soup for his friends. Everyone enjoyed his food. But within these simple words, I found complex emotions, clear cause and effect relationships, and natural dialogue patterns that were building my understanding of how English really works. I developed a system that transformed my reading practice. First, I would read purely for enjoyment, not stopping to look up every unknown word. If I understood 70% of the story, that was enough. My brain was remarkably good at inferring meaning from context, and this skill grew stronger with each book. Then, I would read the same story again, this time more carefully. I would choose 5 new words that seemed important or interesting. Not random vocabulary, but words that appeared multiple times or that I could imagine using in conversation. I would write these words in a special notebook, along with the sentence where I found them and my own example of how to use them. The third reading was where the magic happened. By now, I knew the story well, but I could focus on the rhythm, the flow, the way sentences connected to each other. I would read passages out loud, training my mouth to produce the sounds and rhythms I had internalized through listening. As my confidence grew, I graduated to longer books, then to simple news articles, then to short stories written for adult learners. Each step was carefully chosen to challenge me without overwhelming me. The key was finding that sweet spot where the material was difficult enough to teach me new things, but easy enough to keep me engaged and motivated. Writing became my secret weapon for attention. Every day, I would spend 10 minutes writing about my day, my thoughts, or my dreams. At first, my entries were painfully simple. Today was sunny. I went to school. I ate pizza for lunch. But I was establishing a habit, creating a safe space to experiment with the language without fear of judgment. Gradually, my writing became more sophisticated. I started using the new vocabulary I was learning from my reading. I began connecting sentences with words like however, therefore, and meanwhile. I started expressing opinions. I think the movie was boring because the plot was too predictable. One particularly powerful exercise was rewriting the stories I had read in my own words. This forced me to truly understand the plot, the characters, and the emotions, while giving me practice with narrative structures and descriptive language. It was like having a private tutor guiding me through the intricacies of English expression. I also started keeping a dialogue journal, where I would write conversations between imaginary characters. This helped me understand the natural flow of English conversation, the way people really speak to each other, including interruptions in formal language and emotional undertones. The breakthrough moment came when I wrote my first creative story, a tale about a young person learning a new language. As I wrote about the characters' struggles and triumphs, I realized I was writing about my own journey. The story flowed naturally, the emotions felt real, and the English felt like my own voice, not something borrowed or artificial. Reading and writing together created a powerful feedback loop. Reading showed me how English could be used effectively, while writing let me practice and internalize those patterns. Reading expanded my passive vocabulary, while writing activated it, making it truly mine. The combination was transformative. I wasn't just learning English anymore. I was living it, breathing it, making it a part of who I was. And the best part? Every page I read and every word I wrote was building toward the moment when English would feel as natural as my native language. Looking back on this incredible journey, I've learned lessons that extend far beyond language learning. These insights have shaped not just how I speak English, but how I approach challenges in every area of my life. The most profound realization is that perfection is not the prerequisite for progress. It's the enemy of it. I spent years waiting to be ready to speak, to have perfect grammar, to sound like a native speaker. But readiness isn't something you achieve in isolation. It's something you build through action. Every mistake I made, every awkward conversation, every mispronounced word was not a failure, but a stepping stone to fluency. Consistency trumps intensity every single time. Studying for 8 hours once a week is far less effective than practicing for 30 minutes every day. Language learning is like physical fitness. Regular, moderate exercise builds strength more effectively than sporadic intense sessions. Those daily conversations with my cat, those few minutes of reading before bed, those simple journal entries created neural pathways that intensive weekend study sessions never could. Emotional connection is the secret ingredient that transforms mechanical learning into natural acquisition. When I listened to stories that moved me, when I wrote about topics I cared about, when I spoke about my real experiences, the language stuck. English stopped being a subject to study and became a tool for expressing my authentic self. Perhaps most importantly, I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in the presence of fear. Every time I chose to speak despite my nervousness, to write despite my imperfections, to engage despite my insecurities, I was building not just language skills, but life skills. The confidence I gained from mastering English has empowered me to tackle challenges I never thought possible. Your English transformation starts today, not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready. Choose one simple story and listen to it twice. Look in the mirror and speak 3 sentences about your day. Write 1 paragraph about something you love. These tiny actions seem insignificant, but they're the seeds of your future fluency. I want to hear about your journey. Comment below with the first English sentence you'll speak today. Share your biggest fear about learning English. Let's support each other in this community of brave learners. If this story inspired you to take action, show some love with a like and subscribe to Epic English Stories for more transformational content. Remember, every expert was once a beginner, and every master was once a disaster. Your English adventure starts with a single word, a single sentence, a single brave moment. Let's make it happen together.